First of all, I just want to call on Jon O'Brien. Jon is the President of Catholics for Choice. It's an organisation campaigning globally for pro-choice positions on family planning, contraception and abortion. And I suppose Catholics for Choice have been really helpful to the pro-choice movement in Ireland over the last number of years in terms of articulating and I suppose influencing Catholics towards a pro-choice position. So thanks a million, Jon. Jon is here from the States for a few days and we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us this evening. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm originally from Dublin on the south side. I hope you Northsiders won't hold that against me. But I have to say that the Workers' Party have played an absolutely pivotal role in bringing about some of the changes in the Republic of Ireland, as you well know. I remember Tomás McGilla back in the day, he was addressing a youth assembly here in Dublin, and he said to them, whatever you do, don't be reasonable. He said it's a real problem when people start being reasonable. That's the problem with us older politicians. He said be unreasonable about the type of change that people deserve and the dignity that they deserve to live with. And I imagine just as he said that, the Workers' Party went on to be a central part of many of the struggles to try to bring about a better secular Ireland. And so I'm very proud to be here on a platform that's a Workers' Party platform for repeal of the 8th Amendment. The Irish Central Statistics Office tells us that the percentage of population professing Catholicism is 84.2%. It's the lowest in over 100 years, despite the arrival of Catholics from other countries. The Statistics Office also tells us that those who profess no religion, 300,000, a fourfold increase, the biggest amongst atheists. I put it to you that, like in other parts of the world, it's highly doubtful that those people in the Republic who still profess to be Catholics, like me, I am a Catholic, I do believe in invisible things. And I make no apology for it. It's unlikely that those Catholics actually do profess and believe in the types of things that the Catholic hierarchy do when it comes to social issues. I don't think it's true that Catholic Ireland is dead and gone, but it has changed dramatically. And I think it's good that it has changed dramatically. The Ireland of the past, in relation to religion, was a very dark place for many people, and I don't need to go into the type of a myriad of abuses that the Catholic hierarchy carried out. But I put it to you that the Catholic Church is not some building in Rome, it's not some cathedral in Dublin. The Catholic Church is all of the people in the church. And I think that as a body of people, the bishops and the priests are part of that, but they are not the church. So I think it's important for us to think about what is it that Catholics actually think, what is it that Catholics actually practice. The people that you'll meet on the doors over the next week or so, some of them, religion will be important for them. And for some of them, even if they wouldn't admit it's important to them, there's residual memories of that religion as it formed morality and ethics. Morality and ethics, as you know, is not owned by a particular religion or indeed by religion. I know a lot of atheists who are moral and ethical, thank God. I think, though, it's important that we remember that the changes that were brought about here in Ireland, we fought for the legalisation of contraception. I was part of that battle with the Irish Family Planning Association and many Workers' Party members back in the day. We fought for divorce and we won the right to divorce. We fought for marriage equality and we won the right for marriage equality. And there's a myriad of other equalities that we fought for. The people who fought for those, who made the decision to go against what the Catholic hierarchy were saying, many of those people were Catholics. So what I'm saying to you is that we shouldn't have to choose between our faith and our freedom. It is possible, I believe, to be a Catholic in good standing, while at the same time holding a different view on some of these social issues than the hierarchy of our church actually believed in. Modern Ireland, modern Irish social fabric, Jon O'Brien said, the Catholic Church was felt, feared and courted on all sides as a dominant political power. I don't need to remind you about, what happened to Noel Browne. I was just thinking about Noel Browne the other day in the Mother and Child scheme. The most bizarre thing. Could you imagine going after this guy who wants to give milk, to mothers and children and, And it was all because, right, he was a communist, or he was accused of being a communist, and they brought him down and brought the government down and brought down what would have been a fabulous mother and child scheme back in the 1950s. Now, I think a lot has changed since then, and I don't think that the Catholic hierarchy have the same type of power. You've noticed over the last couple of weeks, they haven't been as prominent as they were back in the 1980s, for example. I think the anti-abortion side might be telling them to don't go near the microphone, please. And that's not a bad thing. I think that it's absolutely fine that the Catholic hierarchy can have their view. I think they should express their view just as any other citizens should. But I think it's also important that we recognise that Catholics themselves can and do dissent from what the hierarchy say. Now, you're probably wondering, is he a really bad Catholic, or what's the problem with this guy? I have to tell you that sometimes when someone's trying to win an argument, they don't let the facts get in the way. And it's important to understand in Catholicism that conscience, properly formed conscience, is the final arbiter in moral decision making. Now, in Catholicism, it's not that it would be nice if you followed your conscience. You have to follow your conscience. And I think that's exactly what Catholics do. Catholics use contraception. You know that. Catholics, unfortunately, our marriages break down and we have divorces. Catholics, brothers and sisters, are lesbian and gay and transgender. So the reality is that Catholics do follow their consciences every day, and we're required to do that. It wouldn't be good enough to die and be able to say, well, I was just following orders. You have to actually follow your conscience. 99% of Catholic women in the United States use a method of birth control that the bishops disagree with. And if you go to other Catholic countries, Portugal, Spain, Italy, or I've just been down in Chile. Down in Chile, the people voted, under the leadership of Michelle Bachelet, they voted to allow abortion in 3 circumstances, opening up the idea of further reform. Those anti-abortion laws were introduced by General Pinochet in the closing days of the Pinochet regime at the bequest of the Catholic hierarchy in Chile. So what you're seeing time and time again is you're seeing places that are countries in which religion, the Catholic religion, is important to some people, still deciding in favour of freedom. And I think that that's interesting. People say, well, what about the bishop or the priest who says abortion is murder? That's his personal opinion. And I, again, because I do believe in free speech, I believe that he's absolutely entitled to express a personal opinion. But I think it's important to remember that while the Catholic Church has long taught that abortion is a sin, the reasons for it being sinful has changed. Now, they say that our teaching on abortion is unchanged and unchangeable. So let me tell you how they've changed it over the years. The first thing is that the first reason why it was considered a sin was because of the perversity view. Now, that meant that the sin was that if you were pregnant and you wanted an abortion, it probably was because you were slightly pregnant by somebody other than your husband. That was the reason why it was sinful. The second reason that they came up with was the ontological view. Now, this is back in the 17th centuries. You got these scientists and they're looking through microscopes that probably have more in common with jam jars than they do actually any medical facility. And they were looking through and they thought they saw something they didn't see, and they were like, oh, that's a sin if you were to abort that. Now, they don't much go on about the ontological view anymore, or the view that, the perversity view. They've sort of fallen out of popularity. But it's important to ask yourself the question, what about personhood? Right? Isn't that what the priest will be saying? It's a person. The 1974 Declaration on Procured Abortion from the Vatican says that they are not in agreement as to when personhood begins. I believe where there's doubt, there is freedom. So you might say to yourself, well, I think you'd know enough to know that teachings on things like abortion and contraception are not infallible. So you know this idea, you have to do what the Pope tells you. It's mainly Protestants who think that, but Catholics actually don't do what the Pope tells them all the time. I think we instinctively know that. There's only 3 things that are infallible in Catholicism. Number 1, the Assumption of Mary into heaven when she died. Number 2, the virgin birth. And naturally, because a canon lawyer wrote this, the other one is the Declaration on Infallibility itself is infallible. which makes total sense. But I think what's important to recognise is that when Catholics get up and they go and they have an abortion and make that difficult decision, they're following their consciences. And there's a thing in Catholicism as well called the principle of reception. If a teaching is not received by the people, it's not like a popular vote thing, but if it's not received by the people, there might be something wrong with it. And I think if you look at teachings on contraception and the fact that thousands of Irish women go every year for an abortion in another country, I think it's very obvious to me that teaching around abortion has not been received by Catholics. And that brings us back, I think, to an important point that I really want to emphasise. The Second Vatican Council had a declaration on religious freedom, and it reinforced the call for Catholics to respect the positions of people of other faiths. We don't have to work to make the laws of a country adhere to what the Catholic hierarchy believe in. In fact, we shouldn't do that. And the reason we shouldn't do that is exactly what your poster says: secular. Secular. What's secular? Does secular mean that we want to get rid of all the religious people? No, it doesn't. Secularism is freedom of religion and freedom from religion. The biggest protection for religious people like me is that we would not have laws and government that would be religiously oriented. Because who knows, it might not be my religion that ends up winning. Or even if my religion did end up winning, it turns out that the leaders in my church, we disagree with them about a range of issues. So the best protector for religious people is the fact that you have a secular society. And I think that instinctively means that freedom of and freedom from religion, that we can coexist together. That people who don't believe in God can coexist with those of us who do, and that we can work out laws and ways of being that are respectful for everybody. I think that that's the reason why I think a secular society, and I think that this vote that we have on this difficult issue of abortion, I think that abortion is a difficult issue for many people. It's ending life in the uterus. You can try to message that as best you can, but the reality of it is that facing up to the fact that some women need to be able to make that decision, facing up to the fact that from a compassionate point of view, there's something wrong with having to force Irish women, especially with its impact upon poorer people, having to force them to leave the country and go somewhere else where they're not with their families, they're not with their own medical advisors and doctor, and they're away in some foreign place. There's something intrinsically wrong about that. And that's why, as a Catholic, from a social justice perspective, there's something inherently wrong with the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. There's an injustice in it, and that's the reason why I'll be with you, hoping that we're going to be able to change this and right one of the many wrongs against Irish women that have been perpetrated over the years. Thank you for listening.